My new best friend in the whole world, Kenneth Davis, Big Ten Country, joins us from Chicago, the Windy City. Kenneth, we were talking about, usually we get into games. This week, there's some games we can talk about, but I kind of wanted to do a big picture segment with you because there's a lot of stuff here at the end of the season going on. One of the things is, and it boggles my mind that a coach that's as smart and good as Sherrone Moore, really, really good. And I think he's going to have Michigan winning a lot of games. If nothing else shows you that, they're sitting at 500 right now with a black hole at quarterback. There is nothing good coming out of that position. And they've managed to continue, they're going to finish 500 or better and without a quarterback. That tells me they've got something there. Now, a lot of that's left over from Harbaugh, but I think he's clearly smart enough to keep it going and good enough at his job. But they didn't get in the portal. When Ohio State started talking about Will Howard, if I were Michigan, I'd been like, no. I want them to wait a little bit. I want them to have to I want them to struggle a little bit on this thing. And they didn't get in that business because they were happy with their guys. Now they've got a situation with Bryce Underwood where it appears, and we'll let Garrett in a second, that he has turned down a lot of money to come to Michigan, that LSU has probably beaten that. How does Michigan get in a spot the year after a national title where they don't have a quarterback on a team that could have easily contended for the Big Ten with one?
I think when you think about the situation where if he's in or if he's out, and I'm talking about former Michigan head coach, also former quarterback Jim Harbaugh, kind of plays into that, because I think we all know when you're recruiting, you're always going to point out the deficiencies or what's going on in another program, particularly if it's in his backyard being from Michigan. So, because to me, I would ask, with Harbaugh there, why? And we know, that Kentucky came for him, and people have been asking this young pedigree kid to commit for a long time, why Michigan wasn't up there in the first place. And it would seem that perhaps he may have had his eye to get out of state, or perhaps maybe Michigan. I doubt Michigan wasn't interested having a kid with that much talent in state. So I can't place all of that for him on Sherrone Moore. I can't put all of that on Sherrone Moore, because even though I'll say this, we have to remember Sherrone Moore was the lead recruiter for Michigan, but I think it has more to do with the fact the young man probably was looking beyond Michigan, and also the bag at both of these are football universities, but you're talking SEC money, and LSU still has that little blood in his mouth from Joe Burrow winning a national title several years ago. And it's like, we don't want to sit there and wait another decade, because it kind of seems like maybe every decade, every 8 years is when LSU kind of gets to that, when they're a legitimate title contention, and they're like, we're not about to wait that long, so let's dive in now. So just for this player, now I'll say this, when you've asked this for like 5 weeks prior to this. Yeah. Transfer portal, last week was Will Howard, but in general, transfer portal wise, why didn't Michigan do something? Clearly there was a failure with Sherrone Moore. They should have done something. So that's how I kind of view it. But then also I kind of thought about this with you guys, right? So this was a heavy Garrett show in my mind today, right?
Yeah.
So I was thinking initially, just the top of my brain before really doing a deep dive. I'm like, all right, neither one of these universities are really heralded as quarterback factories, right? And I just started going to my mind. Of course, you can say the GOAT Tom Brady went to Michigan, but he wasn't the clear favorite even at Michigan, and we know where he was drafted. You and I are old enough to remember 49ers and Ravens, but particularly 49ers, Elvis Grbac, and of course, as aforementioned, Jim Harbaugh, and we don't know what J.J. McCarthy may end up doing. Just pointing out some of the quarterbacks from Michigan that have had some sort of success within NFL. So then I start thinking about LSU, and I had to slap myself, Garrett. I'm going to give you some props right here, right?
Okay.
Because I was thinking about, listen, I hope Jamarcus Russell was going to be somebody as a kid, especially being a brother. Let me put my cards full on the table. Rohan Davey, and even, listen, Justin Jefferson. I remember Justin Jefferson's older brother when he was playing there, right? So I went to LSU. I've been down with the Tigers or whatever, but you know where my affinity lies. But I've usually been really an SEC person outside of being with Big Ten country and the Big Ten kind of making me more interested over the years. I know it's disrespectful living up north, but hey, I like quality sports. Whatever. Get at me if you want to get at me. But when I started thinking about, okay, wait, Joe Burrow was just there, even though he was a transfer, but still he was there. But then when you look at what Jaden Daniels did last season, and I mean, to start picking up towards the end of the prior season, it just makes more sense if you're talking about ensuring what you may be able to do in the pros right now. And I offer you, all right, look at what a player that may be more in the vein of how you played in a Jaden Daniels, and you look at, let's just say, the last quality quarterback at Michigan, JJ McCarthy. And again, he's sat there and he's committed to LSU several years from now. I think a couple years ago. It still makes more sense, probably even being that I'm here because of the Big Ten, probably to commit to LSU, even though me being up here, I would love to see him stay in state and go to Michigan and give Sherrone Moore that chance with what that defense and we know that running game is. But this is his future, and I'm always a big proponent of do what's best for you. I'll say this, though. I know it's supposed to be like close to 11, and I'm not saying that Michigan can outspit. I mean, wait, Michigan, there's a lot of rich people that graduated from Michigan 1. All right. I'm sure both of these schools, alumni-wise, have crazy money and endowments. Mm-hmm. But Michigan should put up as much money as possible to try to make sure they can get back into contention right away if they believe he could be the quarterback in the future to prop them up back in the national contention. But it's a shame to see him leave the state. And I saw the post with him posting that, he's likely going to stay at LSU. And I mean, as I'm not a Michigan fan, but I'm sure that had to sting like a shot to the arrow to see that you don't have a chance to have that instant boost. But you know what? There's still going to be some quarterbacks out there in the transfer portal, perhaps, that they can perhaps to bring in and maybe be suitable, but it may not be this young heralded number one prospect coming out next season.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty wild to me though that you can have a kid from Michigan that just says no. Now Garrett's thrilled. Oh, and yes. Let's bring Garrett in on screen now. Garrett's thrilled. Yeah. Garrett's thrilled that he could be staying he's staying. He was in Baton Rouge. You said last night,
yeah,
right?
He was there for the Bama game.
Yeah, he was there for the Bama game.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. Thanks, Kenneth. Thank
you. You're not that sorry, Kenneth. Don't pretend. But it is like, I wonder where Michigan goes from here, because to me it looks like they're going to have to get in the portal, at least get a rental, and then splash with a Deuce Knight who's committed to Auburn right now but is taking visits, or
Julian Lewis.
There's that kid that's committed to Maryland that I think would do well in their system. Big 6'4", like 210 guy, but they're going to have to do that. But things shift really fast in college football now. I'm not going to use the example that I know that you guys want me to use, because I will cry. But
what would that be?
Yeah, that would be a team that was 13-0 and is now 1-9. So they shift fast. You don't want to be that. I hope for everybody else in the world's sake that that's the only time this happens. But I do think that this is going to happen more often now with the transfer portal, where a team hits on it and then they're the Florida Marlins, right? They're all of a sudden it's all gone. Like, you have that great year, it's all gone, and then you have to put back the pieces. As good and as big as powerful as Michigan is, they could very well be that team in a year or two.
Easily. I'll say this. I think there's several factors to add into what you may not fall as precipitously as FSU, and that's the team he's referring to, that Notre Dame. And that has to hurt that it was ND that just beat the crap out of y'all last week. Hey, that's just bad business. But I think if it depends on, of course, coaching, but really, and I know here goes Ken with that Big Ten stuff, what you kind of have in the trenches and out on the edges as far as talent. Because one, if you got a kid that's even a game manager, but you have a phenomenal run game, it can keep you to where you may only have 2 to 3 losses in a season, and it keeps you attractive. I think now what we're going to have to see is how can you continuously make your school it? And it doesn't have to be at the zenith of it, where it's what Alabama was, but it has to be where it's in the top 8, kind of, I believe, where, and it doesn't fall off. Like a bad year may be at max 3 losses, or it's a bad year because you had 4 losses, but your Heisman candidate got hurt early and it took you out. I think if you can continuously show kids that you have a chance to get them to the pros, you're still going to be a program that's going to get kids to come there, because that's really what most of these kids want, the easiest avenue and the biggest billboard to present themselves to get drafted as high as possible in the NFL.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Kenneth, we saw the second week in a row of playoff rankings come out. 4 Big Ten teams stand to make it right now. And outside of I think the big question is, because if Penn State wins out, they're going to be in as disappointing at, like, their schedule's not great and their one quality team they played they lost to, but they'll still be in. Probably doesn't bode well for them in seeding or who they're going to play in the first round of the playoffs. I think the big question comes in Indiana and Ohio State. If Indiana beats Ohio State, that'll be Ohio State's second loss. How much is Ohio State punished in the rankings for that? But if Ohio State beats Indiana, much like Ohio State beat Penn State, if that should it be a close game, which I really think it will, because Indiana's good. Who gets punished for that, and does Indiana at 11-1 get knocked out of the playoff, as where Ohio State at 10-2 would not?
No, I don't think Indiana should get knocked out of the playoff if they lose to, at right now, number 2 ranked Ohio State. And Ohio State lost by what, 1 point to Oregon?
Yeah.
No, that to me, and I understand Penn State is messing this all up. Yes, Drew Our fan club president right here. I'm not abandoning them. It stinks over there in Happy Valley, though. And they should not be perhaps in the CFP, but definitely this high in the rankings. But I believe definitely Indiana deserves the chance, if they have one loss to a second-ranked Ohio State, to still be within the playoffs. I think there's a couple of schools that we could perhaps look at as perhaps not getting knocked out before we go. I mean, look, what about Mississippi? You know, I won't say Alabama, because that'd just burn my mouth to say something like Alabama. And I mean, it's hard for me to put anybody. I think Georgia's a little bit too low, and they have the best strength of schedule. So it will be hard for me to disrespect what Kirby's doing. And I know this isn't last season or seasons prior, but to almost have a chance to three-peat, I mean, I'm an Alabama person, and I don't like to disrespect what Kirby's been doing at Georgia for 5 seasons, basically. Yeah. So I think I would say perhaps Mississippi will be the school that I would look at and say that if some school didn't make it with them having 2 losses, that perhaps they should be the school that gets knocked out to keep Indiana in. But I'll be honest with you, it should just be Penn State. I mean, if we're being like that, and that's the problem. Penn State is really messing a lot up right now for schools that deserve it. I wish Penn State had a victory against somebody that counted, but when you just look at who they've beaten and who they've lost to, it's bad business for the Big Ten, that Penn State is where they're at right now, doing Penn State things.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't think, like, for right now, the way I look at it, if no matter what happens, if Indiana beats Ohio State, in my opinion, shouldn't be out, because there'll be plenty of 10-2 teams, especially from the SEC, that are in. And if Ohio State's 2 losses are to the number 1 team and the number 5 team, I mean, that's
you got Indiana beating Ohio State, Paul?
No, but like if they did, like, you know, Ohio State, Ohio State at 10-2 should still be in, because Alabama at 10-2 would be in, right?
I'm with you.
You know, A&M at 10-2 would be, if A&M beats Texas, A&M at 10-2 would be in. You know, so again, Ohio State, I mean, you know, that would be wildly disappointing and might get Ryan Day fired for a stupid reason, because we'll be mad at that, Paul. Yeah, he's got a subset of fans that is growing. That every second that he doesn't win a national title, or every second he doesn't beat Michigan, and look, if he beats if he doesn't beat this Michigan team,
oh no,
yeah, I mean, like, basically, if he doesn't beat this Michigan team but still gets in the playoff, his thing is, you better win all the rest. Like, we're already like polishing off a spot for a trophy, or you're out. Like, and that would be like the one big job that's open this year, because I don't think there's going to be a lot.
Who do you think? Okay, I want to get back to this.
Yeah.
But you just said something. Hypothetically, who do you think that is a named person that would jump to that job? Because I don't have the person that I would know that.
I don't either. Because because with Ryan Day, he was just Urban Meyer's, you're the successor. I'm moving on. With that now, if Luke Fickell had been better the last couple years at Wisconsin, and they may still go ahead and say, look, he kicked ass at Cincinnati, let's just put him in here. Wisconsin, he's trying to change the system and all that, he can just come here. Like, that would be my number one choice for them, but Wisconsin's just been okay for the last 2 years. So I don't know. Like, I honestly have no idea. Like, it's probably somebody in the NFL we're not thinking about, or maybe it is Mike Vrabel. Like, maybe they'll get Mike Vrabel because that's about the only college job they can get him for. And there's a bunch of people who would want to hire him. But yeah, I don't have a name in mind. Like, and that might also save Ryan Day. I think part of it has saved Billy Napier in that, okay, are you going to be able to wrestle Lane Kiffin away from Ole Miss? Maybe. But, in spite of other things going on there, like, what are you going to do? If you want to make a splash hire right now with the playoff going as long as it is, so a splash hire means that you've got to hire a playoff coach or a coach that's right near the playoff, right? Well, they're not going to leave until it's over. Like, it's different.
I got a guy.
Okay.
He's not in the playoffs either. I got a guy. Okay. And listen, I hope you all on here, you kind of know me a little bit, know that I think I'm a good person. All right. I believe.
I think you are.
I try in my life to be a good person, but as anybody, I'm flawed. Everyone is imperfect. This person kind of isn't a good person. All right. Again, I don't know. But to be honest, I think you got to go back and get the guy that built it up, because he's out there working on weekends right now.
Oh, yeah.
And to be honest, if there was no one out there that I think could get us back to where we are. And you got to think it's an open field. And I'm referring to Urban Meyer, everybody who works for Fox, right? It's open. If you give Urban a chance in the playoffs, what could happen? Like with 12 teams in the playoffs? Again, they've already allowed him to do things at that university that's like what was going on up there. And again, because I don't think a lot of times nowadays people really care as much about PR hits. It's just kind of the way the world is winging it. But that's kind of the way that I would kind of be leaning at.
What makes you say that, Kenneth?
What?
What makes you say that?
I don't know, man. I open the door and open the window and I look out. It's like, wow, it's wild out here, right? But listen, I want to get back to something that we were talking about, and this was when you were talking about Ohio State losing to Indiana, right? Listen, you said this last week, and it was about, should Indiana feel confident and feel burned rather that they're not playing a quality quarterback under center for Michigan? And I was like, they better just accept what they were getting. And they only won by 5 points out there. Mind you, I'm not bragging about it because my prognostications have been terrible this year, right? Yeah. Like, look at Iowa. Like, I watched Friday and was like, I got to go back on that show next Friday. I am getting my ass kicked in the prediction streets, right? But the point being, when you look at the trenches, and that was kind of the problem with why it was like, you know what, Michigan may have a chance, and you think about, for instance, Penn State versus Ohio State, and how on the defensive side, how all those young men that came back last year really starting the fourth quarter, third quarter, turned the heat up on Drew Allen, that team. And I think that's what's going to stop Indiana from beating Ohio State. I think, like you said, it could be a close game, but I think Ohio State just has too much for Indiana at this point. And again, like I've said to you, I want to take a wait and see approach to see over the long haul how this program may grow. But that's why I kind of feel like it's going to be a one-loss Indiana team rather than a two-loss Ohio State team.
Yeah, absolutely. So I did want to talk about Nebraska and USC this week. This game between mediocre teams it's a bit of a dud from what we had maybe hoped for early in the year. Now, Nebraska can get to bowl eligibility, and I actually think that they will this week. I'm picking Nebraska to win this game because USC feels a little hapless, but Jordan Maava gets the start. They're changing quarterbacks. Lincoln Riley, I feel like I don't want to say he has one foot out the door, but I do feel like he's lost his passion for college coaching because Oklahoma Lincoln Riley and this guy are not the same guy. Like, they are not the same guy right now. Now, look, they have the same problems, but his attitude feels completely different to me. And, you know, he somehow messed up both those jobs simultaneously by taking the USC job. How do you see this game shaking out with the new quarterback for USC and the fact that nothing's happened the way that USC wanted it to since bringing Lincoln Riley over?
One, I wonder where you think when you said that you don't see him remaining in college football, where he's going to end up going. So that's a discussion for another day.
I think,
particularly
look,
if it's going to
here's
be
the
close
deal.
to me or not.
I think he would. I think if they made the right kind of offer on the right kind of day, you know, he could buy a jacket.
I don't know if that. Again, and we're talking about the Bears and Caleb. Everybody is what I think we're hinting about.
Yes,
it's just still one. It's one of those situations of I don't want to say failing up because he was good at Oklahoma. And I like how you said he ruined 2 jobs. That was a good one.
Yeah.
But at least he has head coaching experience, and I worry about the Bears bringing in someone because I'm a big Ben Johnson offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions guy.
Me too.
But you get tired of someone who has no head coaching experience, and that's a different animal. And even though you can be a great, prolific offensive mind, being the CEO of both sides of the ball and the locker room is a different thing. This one's a hard to call game. You know that I've liked what's been going on with Nebraska, but it's early, and it's something that we've talked about. It's really early. Switching to Jordan Maeva, and make I'm be honest with you, I'm still gonna take SC in this one.
Okay,
you know, like I'm still gonna take SC because I think Lincoln Riley, he does I don't want to say stupid, but it's stuff that we don't expect, like, you know, the bowl game last year, and how Miller Moss just went off, and it was just like, you know, Caleb isn't going to play, you know, man, what's next year going to be? And it kind of gave you hope. And it was funny because I thought Jordan may have still had an opportunity to get this job in the off season. And I wonder, will this be one of those things where he takes off and it's hot, and then we think for a second he could be him, and then we find out either at the remainder of this year or next year that he's not him. But it's just, I think Nebraska's kind of beaten up. And I don't think it's going to be something that's going to hurt them next year. I think this is going to be something that benefits Nebraska in growing next year. But I'm just going to go with SC because I've been wrong a lot the last 4 weeks anyway. So I may as well continue my streak of being terrible at predictions.
Well, look, my co-host, regularly Smokey, he's a Mr. Nebraska fan. I mean, we've got the helmet right back there that Matt Rule sent us. So if you're wrong, he would love it because that means they're in a bowl game for the first time in, I think 2 presidential administrations now. So it would be a big deal. Kenneth Davis, Big Ten country. We're going to carve out some time to talk about the Bears.
That's
and
crazy.
Lincoln Riley.
And I'll say this. I hope Nebraska wins. I'm still taking SC. I love the fact that, you know, Matt Rule has been doing that in Nebraska, but I'm still taking SC, but it'll be great to see them make a bowl game. But I'll say this, they'll be in a bowl game within the next couple of years, and it won't just be a bowl game because we made a bowl game. I think in 2 seasons, they should perhaps be in the playoffs. I won't say next year they'll be in the playoffs. They have an opportunity. I think in 2 seasons, Matt Rule will have Nebraska back in the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. Kenneth Davis, Big Ten country, here with us on 365 Sports. After this, it's the top 5. This is 365 Sports.